Okay, we recorded. Thanks so much, Sam. Shalom, Ran.
Okay.
Sorry about the misunderstanding there.
No problem.
Okay, that doesn't matter. We mustn't now the future. We're not talking about past.
What's happened to the roof?
No, Rabbi is going to talk.
No, he's gone off.
Which page? It's page 11A1, I think.
Yes. 11A1. In the middle of the a couple of just a minute. Yeah, before before the wide lines, four lines before the wide lines. The subject that we were talking here, the Mishnah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he deals with the human beings, is a midah keneged midah. It's the same the way that the person deals with God, God deals with him. And the Gemorra brought some examples before with Samson and others. Then the Mishnah said, this is not only when it comes to punishment. The Gemorra says that also the Mishnah says the principle of measure for measure is not only to punish, but also to reward. For a person, when he does a good deed, Hashem pays a measure for a measure. And then the Mishnah brings an example. V'chen l'inyan hatovah, again, you find 4 lines. There is V'chen l'inyan hatovah, Miriam. 4 lines before the wide lines. 11A1. So the Gemorra brings, the Mishnah says, so was also our God paid Miriam for a good deed. What was a good deed? It says when Moshe was a baby and his mother put him in a box in the Nile in Egypt that they would not kill him, not throw him to the sea, to the Nile. So the Torah says, ותתעצב אשתו עמו אחותו מרחוק. His sister actually was watching Moshe when he was in this little box on the sea. So it says that in page 9, 9b, where is it? 9b. Yeah, 9b2, the Mishnah said, 2 with regard to the good. Miriam waited 1 hour for her brother Moshe. When, as I said, when his mother put him in a box when he was a little baby, and she was afraid that they are going to kill him. So, therefore, she put him in the Nile, and Miriam she was watching to see what's going to happen. His sister stationed herself from afar, and Hashem pays her. The Mishnah says, therefore, the entire nation of Israel delayed for her 7 days in the wilderness in the Midbar, as it is written, and the nation did not travel on until Miriam is brought in. So this was an example. Hashem also pays reward for a good deed. Now the Gemorra discusses this, as I said, 11a1. The Gemorra asks, me dummy, how can you say this, a measure for a measure? It's not really not equal. It's not the same. Why? Atam Chadashata, Miriam was waiting only 1 hour, watching Moshe there, and then what was the reward that Hashem rewarded there? That for 7 days she got leprosy, and for whatever the case, the whole story, but for 7 days, while she had the leprosy, the people didn't move, didn't travel, and didn't continue. They were waiting for her. So there is a question. How can you say measure for measure? She only waiting for an hour, and it's not equivalent because it was 10 days that the people were waiting for her. Answer the Gemorra, Ela Marava. אמר לי רבא, sorry, וכן לעניין הטובה קטני. The Mishnah taught and so too for good, clearly stating that the principle of measure for measure applies to reward in the same way as it does for punishment, which means Amaraba, it's not must be exactly the same. It means the same principle. Rava said, this is what the Mishnah is teaching. And so too, for good deed, the person is rewarded in that measure in a similar fashion. Doesn't mean to say it has to be exactly the same, in a similar fashion. However, the reward is more than the deed, because midat tova meruba midat poranut. Actually, God's measure for beneficence is greater than his measure for retribution, so that the reward will be quantitatively greater than the action itself. So before we were talking about punishment, retribution, there was a measure for a measure. But when it comes to reward, the principle for a measure is a measure means but the quantity is more than the person actually did. Hashem pays him more. This is what the Gemorra says about this case. Now, the Gemorra continues on the Pasuk about Miriam. The text says, "Vatitatzav achoto merachok." His sister stationed herself from afar to know what would be done to him, to Moshe. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Pasuk ze kulo al shem shchina neemar." This entire verse is stated regarding the Shechina, the divine presence. In other words, that Hashem stood with Miriam, so to speak, until Moshe saved. Hashem was together with Miriam until Moshe was saved, as you know what the story was. The daughter of Paro came to swim in the sea, and she saw the box where Moshe was there, and she took her maid to take him out, and she spoke to Miriam to ask who is the boy. So Miriam said, I can take him to his mother, and she will feed him. So this is what it says. Vatitasev, the Torah continues by analyzing the text of the verse. Vatitasev, God came and stood. This was his sister. Now he says, but talking his sister, for it is written, Emor lachokma achotiyat. You are my sister, talking about wisdom. Say to wisdom that this is my sister. And when it says in the verse from afar, it refers to another verse, and it is written, Hashem appeared to me to know, for it is written, because Hashem is the God of knowledge, and he said he was staying there to see what's going to happen. Now the Gemorra tries to interpret what means there. There is another verse, Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mimach, what Hashem actually asking for you. מה השם לוקח שואל ממך, יעשה, and he will do, for it is written, because Hashem will not do something to him, as it is called, אקרא לו Hashem Shalom. Hashem, the name of Hashem, Shalom. Okay, that doesn't really matter, but the point is very clear that when Miriam was standing there to watch what's going to happen, was God with her, and she was rewarded more than she did. And the lesson for us is, for every good deed that we do, Hashem pays, and pays in the same measure, but not necessarily the same quantity. It can be better and more quantity. So this is discussing this side of Miriam. Now, we continue in the Mishnah talking about Paro. ויקום מלך חדש. Are you with me, guys? You want to continue?
Yeah, can you
stop?
With you.
11a 2 in the middle of the first column. The Gemorra analyzes the verse which describes the beginning of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the beginning of what happened in Egypt. Rav Shmuel disputed the verse which says, Vayakom Melech Chadash. Yes, Ferry. Home, you told people that went to a wedding and they were there, but I told them last week that we have today 9:30. At any rate, I came 9:30. So we have the shiur now. Yeah, because they forgot. That's okay. אוקיי, בסדר. She also forgot Fanny, and therefore when Beverly phoned, she forgot to say that was arranged for 9:30. Anyhow, I mean, my 9:30, your 8:30. We are in a different of an hour. So, when the Gemorra starts to discuss are the beginning of the problems in Egypt, when it started, you remember that in Bereshit, in the Genesis, it was that the Yaakov came with the children and so on to settle in Egypt. Then starts a problem with Paro. He says, "Vayakom melech hadash," a new king arose over Egypt. And the machloket is between Rabbi Shmuel. What is a new? One said it refers to a new king, a different person, a new king. And the other one said, no, it was the same Paro, but shenitchashu gzerotav. The decrees were new. And the Gemorra said, tried to say, while each of them said what he said. Man damar chadash mamash, the one who said it was a genuinely new king, new person, dirtiv, derives from the word which is written chadash, new, a new king. But the other one said chadash means not a new king. The one that said his decrees were new derives from the fact that it doesn't say vayamot vayimloch, doesn't say the Paro died and somebody else took the kingdom. Nobody reigned, doesn't say it. And the text says, continue the verse, Asher lo yadai Yosef, a new person who didn't know Joseph. What does it mean, didn't know? If we are talking about the same king, how can you say he didn't know? Joseph was his deputy. So the Gemorra, he behaves in such a way, it means that he seemed like one didn't know Joseph at all, and therefore he made this new decrees on the Jewish people who made himself that he has never known them, and therefore the decrees were to throw the kids to the sea. And the Gemorra continues the whole story. Vayomer el Amo, Paro started to say, Hine Amnei Israel, he said to his people, behold, the people, children of Israel, are more stronger than us. And now the continuous, the Gemorra doesn't quote it here, but the continuous in the verse, that Paro was afraid that the multitude of the Jews and stronger, they will eventually kick us out of Egypt and they will take it over. So the Gemorra continues now. הוא התחיל בעצה תחילה. Paro offers the suggestion of acting against the Jews, and therefore, as we say, measure for measure, he was the one that started, therefore he was stricken first. He was first to offer the suggestion by, as it written, Vayomer el Amo, it is written, he said to his people that the Am Israel is a multitude, and therefore will have a problem. and he gave them the advice of to get rid of the little babies. לפיכך לקה תחילה. Since the suggestion came from him, therefore he was stricken first, as it says, ובך ובך ובכל עבדיך. And it said the ten makes, the 10 punishment which we read now in Pesach, Dam, Tzfardea, the 10 makes, the Posuk says that the nation will be stricken, but it says, Ubecha ubemcha. He mentioned to be the first one before the nation. And the Gemorra said, this is why it is a measure for a measure. He was the first one to suggest, and he is the first one to be stricken.
Rav, can I just ask a question?
Yeah?
In what way was he the first one? Because the first plague was the plague of blood in the river, correct?
Yeah.
In other words, the nation was the first one to be stricken, not him.
Oh, no,
So
no.
how
you're
do you
right.
understand the fact that
No.
that says he was the first one when frogs comes later on in the 10 plagues?
Yeah, so it actually more doesn't mean to say that he was the first before the others. It's only the emphasis in the verse that he was singled out by not just said your nation. He was singled out in you and your nation. So this is what the Gemorra wanted to say. He was the one suggested, and therefore he was singled out that the plague would be for him and his nation. Doesn't mean to say it started on him. And then the Gemorra continues. What did Paro say? Ava nitchakma lo, let us wisely do something how to deal with them. And the Gemorra says, what the Ava nitchakma lo is in singular. Come, let us act wisely concerning it. It should be lahem. Should be let us act wisely concerning them. Because he's talking about the nation. Amar Rabbi Chama bar Abba gives another interpretation to the verse, that what he means to say, Paro meant was, let us act wisely concerning the Savior of Israel, which means against God. With what can we meet our judgment upon the Israelites without fear of retribution? So like he's now the Gemorra discussing what went in his mind of Paro. How can he try and destroy them? Should we judge them with fire? He said, no, they can't be, because there is a verse to say that Hashem can come in fire. It is written, for behold, Hashem will arrive in fire. And he will punish with fire. And it is written in the next verse, for Hashem will enter into judgment with fire. So this is now, we turn to the next page. In other words, Paro was trying to rule out what is the best way, how they should try and destroy Israel. They couldn't do with fire because Hashem can punish with fire. Then in the next page says, Bacherev, if we judge them with the sword, God will certainly punish us through the sword. Another verse was saying that Hashem one day his sword against all flesh. Then Paro said, you know what, let us judge them with water. Why he thought water is safe? Because שכבר נשבע הקדוש ברוך הוא שאינו מביא מבול לעולם. Because Hashem already made he swore that he will not bring a flood upon the world. So therefore he thought, if we can destroy them with water, we don't be afraid that Hashem will punish us with water, because he already promised that he's not to bring blood in the world. But of course, they didn't know, in the Nam Yudim, they didn't know that when Hashem said he won't bring a flood, means he will not bring a flood over the entire world. But he didn't say that that it's not possible that he will be on a nation, on a single nation. He didn't undertake not to bring flood. In Ami, alternatively, they didn't realize that when Hashem says, but he swear not to bring a flood, God will not bring flood.
But we've only got about 2 minutes.
Okay, we finish there. But he will not bring flood, but he will cause it that people come and fall into the water. And this is what happened in the Yam Suf, when Israel crossed the sea. We said, "Umitzrayim nasim likrato," the Egyptian ran into the water. So this was a punishment for what he thought we will punish with water. Hashem punished them with water. Okay, so we stop here now. In Mirza Hashem next week, we'll come back to the same time, your 8 and mine 9. Okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good Shabbos, and I'm
Thank
sorry
you, Rav.
to
Thank you, Rav.
the misunderstanding of today.
Yeah.
No
All the
problem.
best. Kol tov,
All's
Rav.
well that ends well, Harav.
And Mark, thanks for letting me know. Thank you.
No problem. Pleasure.
Thank
Okay.
you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It's a good drosha for the Seder, Rav.
So I don't know yet.
This is a good drosha for the Seder.
And Rosh, yes, you've got the whole Gemorra
For the Seder.
of the Seder, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good Tag is it, Rav.
I'm leaving.